Hello everyone and welcome back to our lecture series where which we are discussing about syllogism जहाँ पे हम लोग syllogism और syllogism के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं। अपनी हमारी प्रीवियस वीडियोस में हम लोगों ने डिस्कस करा था कि कितने प्रकार के syllogism होते हैं, what are the types of syllogisms are there, what exactly syllogism means, and we've tried to understand some tips which is in relation to syllogism or which is going to be helpful whenever we are going to solve any question which is related to syllogism. So उसी को कंटिन्यू करते हुए we are going to continue with those tips itself, and after the completion of these tips we will be starting practicing the syllogism, and we will try to practice around 50 plus questions which is related to syllogism, in which we will primarily use the Venn diagram method in order to make you in order to understand that what exactly is the method, the correct way of solving syllogism. So let's continue with our chapter, with our syllabus, where which we discuss about the tips. In the previous video, we discuss about the valid inferences. We discuss about the subject predicate relationship. We talked about the possibilities where which if all A being B doesn't mean that all A are B. In our video, we also discuss about the either or strategy that can be utilized. Then the complementary pairs, elimination of the complementary pairs. We talked about at least some rule. Okay. Then we talked about the different type of syllogism that has been already studied. Then the conversion of the statements is also one tip. Then we use the Venn diagram. And obviously, to understand these topics in a much better manner, we are continuing with the tips that has to be understood. Now, the another tip is reverse syllogism method. For this, what we need to do for some complex problem, try to work backward from the conclusion to the premises. This can sometimes reveal hidden relationship or contradiction. So हम लोग उल्टा भी कर सकते हैं कि हम लोगों ने पहले conclusion पढ़ा and then on the basis of that particular conclusion we are coming to the inferences. The opposite one, in the earliest when we were studying about when we were studying about syllogism, what exactly is the meaning of syllogism, we studied at that point of time that there is what we say deductive reasoning. So when we are talking about deductive reasoning, the opposite of deductive reasoning is inductive reasoning, where which we are coming from a general perspective to a particular one. So that also can be done to reverse syllogism. Okay, so this can also help us in solving the question. Avoid assuming beyond the statement. This is considered to be a very important point, a very important things to be discussed whenever we are solving syllogism. Syllogism में आपको कभी भी you don't have to assume beyond the statement. If it has been mentioned that all A are B, you will not go beyond that statement. If it has been mentioned that all apple are green, so you will not go beyond the statement assuming that there are apple which are red also. That has not been mentioned, and this is perhaps the biggest mistake students make whenever they are solving the questions of syllogism, that they try to visualize it and then they end up making mistakes. So if the statement says that all apple are green, I'm giving you an example for your better understanding only, that if it has been mentioned that all apple are green, so that statement becomes a true fact for you. You are not going to validate that statement by in itself. If there is a statement that has been mentioned that all apple are green or all pen are white in color, then it has to be understood. Okay, fine. It can be understood. It can be factually true. Only base your conclusion on the information given in the statements. आप जो conclusion derive करोगे वो ओनली जो स्टेटमेंट में लिखा है उसी से डिराइव करोगे. आप कंक्लूजन ये नहीं कह सकते हो कि अगर जैसे आपको एग्जांपल देते हैं, अगर ऑल एप्पल्स आर ग्रीन लिखा है और नीचे लिखा हुआ है all green are और some green are blue. Okay, तो इसमें क्या चीज इन्फेरेंस कर रहे हैं कि some apples, okay, some apples are blue. इस तरीके से आपको एक स्टेटमेंट दिया गया. Correct? Now, some students what they will feel like that is, sir, apple तो actually में red भी होता है. Correct? Apple is red. What they did, they thought, they assumed beyond the state. Now, what they will mark in the answer will be none of the above premises or the conclusion is true. And they won't be getting the marks because they got beyond the statement. You don't have to go beyond the statement. Syllogism is all about giving a conclusion, finding out a logical inference or logical conclusion out of the two premises or the two statements that has been provided to you. Out of those two statements only, you have to come to a conclusion. You cannot assume a statement and then based on those assumptions, you cannot solve the question. That is not going to give you the correct answer. So it is a very, very, very important point of discussion and a point of a tip that can be utilized by all the students, that never think beyond the statement. Avoid bringing outside knowledge or assumption not supported by the syllogism itself. Very important. Now, check the conclusion for universality. Conclusions derived from the universal statement, all, no, must also be universal. Similarly, conclusions from the particular statement, some not, cannot be universal. It means that if you are saying that some A are B, okay, so opposite of it, that all A are B cannot be considered, cannot be said that it can be the conclusion. If the word some has been mentioned, that it is a particular statement, तो वो some ही रहेगा. It cannot be considered to be universal. But opposite of it, all A are B, some A are B, that is possible. Correct? So you need to understand the relation and the universality of those areas. Now, practice the different patterns. Have different patterns. Okay, different patterns are there. AAA, IA, AII, EIO, etc. So these type of patterns, if you will get comfortable and with solving these common and uncommon syllogism, these patterns that will not at all matter to you. Okay. So this is either or, all, if any, all, is tarike ke. This type of questions will be there. Simplified statement. When given multiple statement, try to combine or simplify them to create a clear picture of the relationship. This can often make it easier to visualize and draw correct conclusions. Okay, so simplify आप statement को कर लो. कहीं अगर लिखा हुआ है कि some A are not B. Okay, some A are not B. So इसका opposite, some B are not A. Can it be made possible? Some A are not B. Some B are not A. There is no logical relation behind the same. Okay, so these are the simple tips that you need to remember whenever you're solving. Recognize possibility conclusion. Statement that deals with possibility should be treated differently. If a conclusion state, it is possible that all A are B, it means that there is a scenario where this could be true, even if it's definitely true in the current scenario. Okay, understood? No overlap rule wisely. For statements like no A is B, understand this sets a strict boundary between the two groups. Use this statement to quickly eliminate any conclusion suggesting overlap. अगर कहीं लिख दिया नो का वर्ड इस्तेमाल हो गया है, इट मीन्स जो सब्जेक्ट एंड प्रेडिकेट है उनके बीच में कोई भी रिलेशन नहीं. जैसे ही आप नो का वर्ड इस्तेमाल देखें, you can directly eliminate, you can draw a Venn diagram where which there are two different characters or the inferences or the statements and which are not at all related. Okay. Now, practice with time constraint. Syllogism problem can be time consuming. What happens is the 12th tip and the 18th tip is something which is very, very important for all of you guys who are trying to solve the question which is related to syllogism. Time constraint and overthinking or over assuming the topics beyond the giving statements tend to cause a lot of inaccuracies whenever we are solving the questions related to syllogism. So it is very important that whenever you are solving time, you are keeping time in mind and you are giving specific time to a specific problem and you are doing it in speed and accurately. By practicing it continuously and consistently, you will be able to use these tips in order to find out the correct answer, perhaps the most efficiently made correct answer in your question papers, which is in turn going to fetch you 100% marks. Okay, so with this, I have tried to explain you the concept behind the syllogism. We have understood what exactly the meaning of the syllogism. We have understood the different type of syllogism, and I would like to recall all these types of syllogism, and I would request you all to just recall those types in your mind. We will start with categorical syllogism. What is the type? How we are going to distinguish that categorical syllogism with the different syllogism, guys? It is by the use of the word all, some, and no. Then we discussed about another syllogism, which was, it was correct. It was conditional or hypothetical syllogism, where which the word of if and then was utilized. Then we talked about another type of syllogism, which was talking about disjunctive syllogism, which was talking about either or. Either this will be true or the other things will be true. Both the things cannot be true. Correct? Then we talked about Ethymeme syllogism, where which we talked about the different type, the syllogism where which only one premise has been mentioned. The other premise has to be imagined or assumed. Then after that, we discussed about polysyllogism, where which we discussed that how there can be different syllogism mixed together and can be conclusion that we need to derive from those different premises. Then after that, we discussed about spheroids, where which we figured out that if there are multiple premises or statements that has been mentioned, and the subject of the first premise or the statement is with the predicate of the last premise or statement, then that type of conclusion is considered to be a spheroids, which is also a part of polysyllogism. Then after that, we studied about statistical syllogism, where which we talked about an important concept, where which we talked about the word that we might be used in order to differentiate will be most probably or likely. Okay. Then we talked about the different tips of syllogism. We talked about the practicing of time constraint. We talked about the inaccuracies. We talked about the concepts that needs to be revised, like the no overlap rule, the possibility conclusion, simplifying the statements, practice with different patterns, then universality, checking the conclusion with universality. Assumptions should not be beyond the statements. Then we talked about the reverse syllogism. Instead of going for deductive to inductive reasoning, we can come from inductive to deductive reasoning. Then we talked about to remember all these universal inferences, that if there is all A are B and all B are C, it means that all A are C. Then obviously, what is the relation between subject and predicate? Then the possibility conclusion, that whether if there is a relationship between A and B, so does that means that this particularly will be, that it will be considered that A actually is B? No. If there is a possibility that 100% doesn't mean that there is a logical correction behind that. Either or rule you remember. Then there's a complementary elimination rule that we have already studied, that at least some rule also is an important rule. Then identify the types of syllogism. What are the types of syllogism? Then the conversion, how can it take place? Then the use of the Venn diagram, and obviously understanding the basic, what exactly is universal as well as what exactly is particular type of statements. So with this, We have concluded the tips also. We have tried to understand the tips, and we will keep those tips in mind whenever we are going to solve the questions which is related to syllogism. And from the next video onwards, we will be directly jumping towards the practice questions that are going to be asked. So I would just like to tell you a little bit brief about these questions. These question encompasses all the different type of syllogisms that we have studied so far. It will consist of categorical syllogism. It will consist of statistical syllogism. And on the basis of those amalgamation of all these type of syllogism, we will have to figure out the conclusion. I'm just going to give you a small sort of a demo, or maybe if you can understand that how the questions will be put up in front of you when you are going to solve the question. So we are just trying to understand the question, not the solution. Okay, guys? There's no need of trying to try. You don't need to start solving the questions directly. First, we will just try to understand how the questions will look like. Whenever we will be presented the question papers, how the questions of syllogism will look like. So for that, we need to understand that there will be a statement. Okay, this is a question 1. So this is question 1. This is a practice questions. So as I told you that we'll be solving around 50 plus questions in order to understand the concept of syllogism. And the first thing that we need to understand is that whenever there will be a question, the question will be put up in front of you in this manner. That there will be statements and then there will be conclusions. And then this will be the brief, that in this question, there are 3 statements followed by 2 conclusions. So there are 3 statements, then followed by 2 conclusions. You have to take the 3 given statements to be true, even if they seem to be variance from the commonly known facts. Okay. And then decide which of the given conclusion logically follows from the statement disregarding the common known facts. So we have to just take into consideration all these 3 statements, and this statement is true. Nobody can question the validity. You cannot say, sir, ye kya question hai, sir? Ye fingers or legs? Ye no fingers or legs? Kya combination? Mostly legs or hands. So there is no, if you're talking about a normal lifestyle, if you're talking about normal course period, then yes, you might get confused. And that is the main reason of asking you this type of questions, that when you are in a confused state of mind, when you've been asked questions where which logical arguments are not there. So whether you are able to figure out the inference from these points on. And that is why these type of nomenclatures you will find whenever you will be solving syllogism. That no fingers and hands. So legs and hands, 2 different things. But abhi syllogism questions ko solve karte hue, you will find there is an amalgamation. There will be a mixture of legs with hands, hairs with hands. So you need not get panicked at all. First, try to understand. You have already studied the types. What you can do, either you can make the Venn diagram, the most common example, the most easy way of solving the syllogism, and perhaps the efficient method as well as the less time consuming method. And it will be easier for you to understand. And after understanding the different types, you can easily figure out that which particular statement is coming from categorical syllogism, which particular statement is coming from statistical syllogism, which particular statement is coming from other type of syllogism. Okay. So now first, we'll just discuss one question so that it becomes a little bit understandable for you. आप लोगों को थोड़ा सा समझ में आ जाए क्वेश्चंस होते कैसे हैं. तो जैसे आप बच्चों देख रहे हो कि पहले के क्वेश्चन दिया जाएगा, question 1 will be there, where which you will be told what exactly has to be understood. This can be in one line only, solve the syllogism under below, or there can be whole description that has been enumerated in such a manner. Okay, so even if this has not been mentioned, then obviously you have to keep in mind that you cannot assume beyond the given statements. Very important. So whatsoever has been written here is true to the best of your knowledge. Never ever think beyond this. The first statement says no finger or legs. Second statement says mostly legs are hands. Only a few hands are hairs. Now question is, some legs are not hairs. Some legs. No fingers or legs. There is no relation. Mostly legs are hands. Okay. Only a few hands are hair. Only a few hands are hairs. Okay. So legs, fingers, hands, hairs. 4 subjects. Some legs are not hairs. Some legs are not hairs. Legs, where is legs? Hairs. And what is the inference between? Mostly legs are hands. Only a few hands are here. So whether this particular statement can be considered to be true? Most probably not. All hands being fingered is a possibility. All hands being fingered is a possibility. I don't feel like that there is any conclusion that can be derived. Okay. So now this will be the options that will be given to you. Okay. Out of these 5 options, you will have to choose the correct answer. It can be either 4 options or it can be 5 options also. Okay. So this is what the Venn diagram is showing. Okay. So this is the answer. Neither conclusion 1 nor conclusion 2 follows. This already I have informed it to you, because what you can see is that there is no logical relation that can be derived from the statement that has been given. Some legs are not hairs. Do you find legs here? Where is legs? Legs is here. And where do we find legs here? We find legs here. So first is no fingers are legs. So let's try to understand this particular question with the help of a Venn diagram. And why we are trying to understand this particular question for a Venn diagram? Because when we are trying to understand this topic of syllogism, Venn diagram becomes very handy in explaining the concept and for the viewers to understand the topic. Okay. So we are directly moving towards the Venn diagram, and let's try to understand. So this is how the Venn diagram would look like. This is how the Venn diagram would look like for the question which has been put forward. The first point is no fingers are legs. Okay. So the first point is saying that the first circle, there are 3 circles that has been made. This is fingers. Okay. These are legs. This bigger circle is hands. And then there are hairs. The first statement is 3 circles, finger, legs, and hands. Finger, legs, and hands is been there. Fingers, legs, and hands, and hairs also. I suppose there has been some mistake. Let me just clear all this, and it will also mention hairs. Okay. No fingers are legs. This is your first statement. No fingers are legs. This was the first statement. So this is fingers. So this is a finger. This is a finger representing, there's a circle representing finger, and then there is a leg. Okay. So there is no direct relation. There is no direct relation between finger and legs. This would mean that the circle of fingers does not overlap with the circle of legs. Very true. Then another statement. What is the other statement? Mostly legs are hands. Mostly legs. So we have the leg here. We have drawn circle. This is a second Venn diagram. What it is saying that mostly legs are implies that implies that legs circle is mostly within the hands, but not entirely. Okay. So this particular leg, this diagram has to be a little bit modified for your better understanding. Let me just clear it for you. Instead of this diagram would somehow look like this. Okay. So the circle that will be drawn will be a little bit outside the hands, because what it is saying, that it is saying mostly legs are hands. So if it is saying mostly leg, it means that 99% the legs are hands, but there are 1% or even at least one leg which is not hand. At least one leg which is not hand. Okay. But not entirely certain. So this can be a drawn example. Only few hands are here. Now only few hands are here. So this is hands. So this is hands. This is hands and this is hair. So this is hand and this is hair. So this particular portion is considered to be the relation of few hands are hairs. Okay. Now, based on this diagram, okay, this is a diagram which has been drawn according to the statement that has been given. The first conclusion that follows is some legs are not hairs. Now the question is, Is there any relation between legs and hairs from the diagram that we have drawn? Can we say that there is an inference? Assumptions, I tell you, I am again repeating you, don't assume beyond what has been mentioned. So we have drawn the Venn diagram according to the information mentioned. Now, some students might end up doing this, that sir, then if it is saying that some legs are not hairs, some legs are not hairs, some legs are not hairs. So whether these statements are true or not, this cannot be said to be true because we cannot find any linkage between the hairs and the legs. Since we are not able to find any sort of overlapping figures, we cannot derive any sort of conclusion in regards to hairs and legs. That is a very important portion that needs to be understood. The second point is, all hand being fingers is a possibility. Hands are here, fingers are here. Is there any link? No, there is no link. Since there is no link, neither this statement is true nor that statement is true. So neither conclusion 1 nor conclusion 2 follows. Follows what? The inferences, the statement that has been provided. Okay. Conclusion 1. Some legs are not here. This is not necessarily true, as the leg circle is mostly within the hand circle, and we cannot determine if any part of the legs are not overlapping within the hairs. Correct? Second is, all hands being fingers is a possibility. This is not possible because finger circle does not overlap the leg circle, and some hands which contains leg would not fit in the finger circle. Obviously, do you find any legs that has been there? Because there is no link between fingers and legs also. If there would have been any link between fingers and legs, and then there could have been a possibility. Could have been a possibility. Then this particular statement, all hands being fingers, or if it has been mentioned as some hands, if instead of all, some hands would have been mentioned, and there would have been a little bit of overlapping between fingers and hands, then the second option would have been true, but that is not in this particular manner, in this particular case. Therefore, neither conclusion follows logically from the statement. I suppose the first question that we have tried to understand in this particular lecture series of syllogism, we have tried to understand it not only by just drawing the diagram, but also by logically inferring, by cross-verifying through the inferences or the statement that has been provided that this is the correct diagram that will be drawn. And after drawing the diagram, we have tried to figure out the inferences that has been brought forward in front of us in the form of conclusions. And if there is no linkage that we can see through the Venn diagram, that particular conclusion cannot be considered to be true. And that is why neither conclusion 1 nor conclusion 2 follows in regards to our first question. With this, we have started with our practice questions, which is related to syllogism. Not only we have started, we have tried to understand in detail that how we are going to solve the questions, and we have been well acquainted that how the questions would look like whenever we are going to practice the questions or maybe sit in competitive examinations. That there will be a brief statement that will be given in the form of questions before the statement has begun. Then there will be a statement that will be mentioned, where which you can find numerous statements, and then based on those statements there will be conclusions. And then there will be options that will be provided to you. Option 1, option 2, option 3, option 4, option 5, option 5. Then you have to figure out that which all options can be considered to be true. Obviously, in majority of the cases, 99.99% of the cases, only one answer can be made true. And based on this circumstances, the option number B was the correct answer. Okay, so we will continue with our other questions, syllogism questions, in our upcoming videos. We will try to understand that what exactly are the different methods that can also be applied apart from the Venn diagram while solving the questions which is related to a syllogism. With this, I would like to thank you all again for being present and being attentively watching this particular video of syllogism, which we have tried to understand the tips, we have tried to understand the types and the concept of syllogism. Along with that, we have also started practicing syllogism in our this particular lecture series on syllogism, which is an important portion while we are preparing for any competitive examination, and the logical reasoning being a part of that syllabus of that competitive examination. So again, I would like to thank you all for being present in this video, for being present in this particular lecture series also. And I would request you all to revise whatsoever we have studied. And in our upcoming lectures, we will try to solve more syllogism questions, which will be based on different types of syllogism that we have studied so far. And then eventually your speed and efficiency in regards to syllogism will improve significantly. Thank you so much, guys. I would thank you all for being present in this video. Till the next video, bye-bye, take care.